Hey everybody, it's Dak here from the Ed Boys, and welcome to my full Vorkath guide. The goal of this video is to teach you everything that you need to know about grinding Vorkath with both range and melee so that you can make some solid, consistent GP an hour. In this video, I will go over all the requirements for Vorkath, followed by the gear and inventory setup for both attack styles. Then we'll talk about how to travel there, as well as the death mechanics. After that, we'll go over all of Vorkath's attacks and how to deal with them, including how to Woox Walk with both range and melee weapons. I'll then go over a full example kill with each combat style before we finally get into the loot that you can get from Vorkath. All of these key points will have chapters, so you can use the timeline to skip to whichever part you need. To fight Vorkath, you have to complete Dragon Slayer 2, though during the quest you do fight a weaker version of Vorkath. For your melee stats, I suggest 80 plus in each attack, strength, and defense. You could go as low as 70 to 75 and still get some kills, but the higher the stats, the better. For range, same thing. I suggest 80 plus to get started, but the higher the better. High defense is also going to be very helpful still while you're ranging Vorkath, though magic level is a little bit more helpful for taking less damage. Your magic defense is affected more from your magic level than your defense level, and you'll be tanking mage attacks while you're ranging. 70 plus prayer and piety unlocked is generally easier than Dragon Slayer 2, and piety is a very big upgrade for melee damage. If you are ranging, 74 prayer and rigor is massive as well. The dexterous prayer scroll is like 16 mil, but it is worth all the GP. If you don't have enough money for that yet though, it's not actually a requirement by any means, it's just very helpful for kills per hour. Let's get into the gear section, starting with the melee setup. You don't need max melee gear to get good kills, but I will be going over each gear slot from the best in slot down to the worst option that I would use for the boss. In your head slot, Torva Full Helm is best in slot, followed by the Nate is Not Face Guard. The Serpentine Helm is not as strong as the first two, but it does keep you immune from Venom, which means you don't have to bring the anti-Venom potions. The Slayer Helmet is a solid option if you're on Slayer task, but it does not stack with the Salve Amulet. If you wear the Slayer Helmet with the Amulet of Torture or the new Rancor Amulet, then it will be worth it. Otherwise, just use the Salve Amulet and any other helmet. On the lower end, I would go for the Blood Moon Helm or the Helm of Nate is Not, which still has some strength and prayer bonus on it. For your cape, the Inferno is best in slot, but definitely not required. The Fire Cape is a fine option as well. If you don't have the Fire Cape yet, any RD Cloak will do as well, since it has a bit of a stab and prayer bonus on them. The higher tier the cloak, the better the stats, and then a trimmed skill cape also gives some defensive and prayer bonuses. In your necklace slot, you want to use the Enchanted Salve Amulet. The salve gives just over a 16% increase in attack and strength when you're fighting an undead monster, which Vorkath is. You can get the amulet from completing the Haunted Mine quest, which is a lot easier than Dragon Slayer 2. This is increased to 20% if you enchant it with Tarn's Diary. To get this diary, you have to kill Tarn, who lives in Tarn's lair. It's very easy to get there with a Slayer Ring teleport, though traveling through his dungeon isn't the worst, and you only have to kill him once to get the diary, and then you can enchant as many salve amulets as you want with it. Like I mentioned before, the Rancor and the Torture will be best in slot if paired up with a Slayer helmet. From there, you could send a Fury or a Glory, but I do suggest just getting that Salve amulet. It's massive. In your ammo slot, you should wear a Blessing for some prayer bonus. The Rada's Blessing 4 gives a +2 prayer bonus, while any other blessing is just a +1. Vorkath is weak to stab and range. For your melee weapon, you have two main options, the Dragon Hunter Lance and the Osmumten's Fang. The Dragon Hunter Lance has a passive bonus that increases accuracy and strength by 20% when fighting dragons. With higher melee stats, this bonus makes an even bigger difference, so the higher your attack and strength level, the more the Dragon Hunter Lance is going to be a better option. But if you are closer to minimum levels, then Osmumten's Fang tends to be better. Overall, they have extremely similar DPS, and the Osmumten's Fang is a whole lot cheaper. I do find it simpler to Woox Walk with the Dragon Hunter Lance than the Fang. To see exactly where your DPS lies with each weapon, I have linked to the Wiki's DPS calculator, as long as a video showing how to use it in the description. After these two, technically the Grazi Rapier would be best, though it's more expensive than a Fang. More realistically, the budget starting weapon would be a Zami Hasta and then an Abyssal Dagger. For your shield, I do like to use something with Dragonfire Protection. The Avernic and the Dragon Defender are still best in slot, and you can kind of get away with only using super anti-fire potions and taking some chip damage from the fire, but I'm a big fan of the Dragonfire Shield for the solid strength bonus and not taking as much damage, and if you can't get your hands on that, you could still just use an anti-dragon shield. In your chest and leg slot, Torva is the best option, followed by Bandos. The Blood Moon set from Moons of Peril is very solid, and that Blood Moon chest is about the same as a fighter torso, and then the lowest I would go is the Obsidian body and legs. Ferocious gloves are best in slot for melee, followed by the trusty Barrow's gloves. If you haven't done Recipe for Disaster, I do suggest you finish that up, since it's a little bit easier than doing Dragon Slayer 2, but granite gloves are okay for the minimum option. Primordial boots are best in slot, but they're very expensive for a minimal upgrade to Dragon boots. Guardian boots and granite boots are not bad for defense, and after that you could keep going down the line from Rune boots. Finally, in the ring slot, if you do have a good special attack weapon like the Void Waker or the Burning Claws, the Light Bearer is very nice for getting some extra specs, and then the Ultor is best in slot for melee DPS, followed by an imbued Berserker ring. The Brimstone ring has decent stats on it, and then worst case scenario, you could still go for an Explorer's ring to bring some alks with you. Now let's look at the inventory for the melee setup. First, I've got the Burning Claws for my special attack weapon, which are very good for some bonus DPS. The Void Waker and the Dragon Claws are also really good too, but a lot more expensive. Bringing an Elder Maul, a Dragon Warhammer, or a Bandos Godsword for lowering defense is not a bad option, but the stronger your melee setup, the less necessary that's going to be, and really the Burning Claws are dope. I have a Divine Super Combat for more DPS, the Extended Super Anti-Fire for fire protection. You do want to make sure it's a Super Anti-Fire, not just a regular, since Vorkath's fire is very powerful. I have an Anti-Venom Plus, since Vorkath has an attack that inflicts venom. You can use like an Antidote Plus Plus or regular Anti-Venom for less immunity. And there's also an Extended Anti-Venom Plus now that we just got from Araxor, but that's not really needed since your trips won't be long enough to run out of this one regular Anti-Venom Plus. Then I have 3 Super Restores, which restore 1 more prayer point per sip than a prayer potion. At the bottom, I've got a rune pouch, which has Dust Runes, Chaos Runes, and Law Runes. The Dust Runes are Air and Earth Runes combined, so this means I can use Crumble Undead and Teleport to House with just the 3 runes, though if you do have the upgraded pouch, then you can just bring 4 runes with you. And I have a Slayer Staff as well, so that I can use it to auto-cast Crumble Undead. The rest of the inventory is Carom Wands. These fish heal 18 health apiece, and they apply 1 less tick delay for attacking when you eat them, which overall is very good for DPS. Vorkath drops a lot of items each kill, so I find that my inventory often fills up with loot almost faster than I can eat the food, so I don't really need any higher healing food, and I am a big fan of these Carom Wands for speed. If you have any questions about the melee gear and Invy setup, let me know in the comments below. Now let's go over the range setup. Again, you don't need max gear to get started, as I've shown in my recent Get Rich with Vorkath video, but the higher tier the gear, the better GP per hour, and I'll be going over each gear slot from the best to the worst option that I would use. Fixed Masori is best in slot over Elite Void. Void gives a percentage boost, so the higher your range level, the better Void is going to be. At 99 range, Elite Void is slightly better DPS than Masori, but the Fixed Masori has better mage defense, which helps with eating less food, leading to faster kills and longer trips. If you haven't gotten your Void gear, I would jump down to that Blessed D'hide Coif. Armor Helm's not bad, but it's not that much cheaper than a Masori mask, and the Slayer Helm is good on task, but it doesn't stack with the Salve Amulet. Archer's Helmet is the lowest I would go, but overall, I highly suggest getting your Void gear for ranging Vorkath. In the Cape slot, the Dazana's Quiver is best in slot, followed by the Ava's Assembler, which might be the reason that you're at Vorkath in the first place, so the Ava's Accumulator is a fine starting point. In your necklace slot, you should use the imbued Salve Amulet. I should have the Salve as a requirement, but technically you can kill Vorkath without it. You get the Salve Amulet from the Haunted Mine quest, and you can imbue it at the Nightmare Zone, Soul Wars, or PvP Arena. You have to imbue the Salve for it to work with range or magic. If you refuse to get the Salve Amulet, the Anguish is best in slot, followed by an Amulet of Fury, and then an Amulet of Glory is the lowest I would go. Your ammo does depend on your weapon, so we can skip over to that. Crossbows are the way to go for your range weapon. You can kill Vorkath with a blowpipe, but then you won't be able to wear a shield, and the DPS is pretty low, so I don't suggest using the Toxic Blowpipe. The Dragon Hunter Crossbow is best in slot for ranging Vorkath, and by kind of a lot. The Dragon Hunter Crossbow is insane, and it's very fun to use at Vorkath. The Armor Crossbow is second best in slot, but it's very expensive, and you can't really Woox Walk with it, and it's really not a whole lot better than a regular Dragon Crossbow, so I wouldn't invest in an ACB just for Vorkath. Even the Rune Crossbow can net you a few solid kills, since Ruby Bolts can help out with those occasional hundreds, though you can only use regular Ruby Bolts, not Dragon Ruby Bolts, with the Rune Crossbow. In your shield slot, you're going to need a shield with Dragonfire protection. The Dragonfire Ward is very nice for ranging, because it has a +8 range strength on it, and if you don't have the ward, you can just use a regular anti-dragon shield. For your chest and legs, Fixed Masori is best in slot, just ahead of Elite Void armor. If you haven't upgraded to Elite Void, regular Void is still solid, but upgrading to Elite is a good upgrade for DPS. Remember, you need all 4 pieces of Void to get the effect of the helmet. After that, I would go for the Carol's top and bottom, and then Blessed D'hide top and bottom, and at the lowest, probably just Black Dragon Hide. Zarya Vambraces are best in slot for range, but if you're using Void, you have to have those Void gloves. Barrow's gloves are still very solid for range, and clearly a lot cheaper than buying Zarya Azarite Vambraces. After that, you can go with God D'hide Vambraces or just Black D'hide Vams. In general, if you're not in max gear, you're probably wearing the Void Gloves though. Pegasian boots are best in slot for range, though they are insanely overpriced and one of the last upgrades you should buy for ranging. The Ranger boots are second best, but they fall under that same category as Pegasians, so any pair of God D'hide boots is just going to get the job done fine. Brimstone boots have a little bit of range bonus, as well as the Shazian boots 5, and the lowest I would go is the good old snakeskin boots. Finally, for the ring, if you have a helpful spec weapon like a BGS, an Elder Maul, or a Zarite crossbow, then you want to use the Light Bearer to get as many specs as possible. The Venator ring is best in slot for range DPS, followed by the Imbued Archer's ring. In general, these two are very underpowered for how expensive they are, making the ring slot not that important for range, unfortunately. The Ring of Suffering is not bad for adding defense. The Ring of Shadows has a small range bonus, and the Brimstone ring has one as well. And if you have no ring with a range bonus on it, the Explorer's ring from the Lumbridge Diaries is good for bringing some alks with you. In your inventory, first I have the bolt switch. You want to use ruby bolts for the majority of the fight. Somewhere from 200 to 250 health left on Vorkath is when you should switch to diamond bolts instead. The ruby bolts do damage based on how much health Vorkath has left, so eventually those diamonds do get stronger, and the higher your overall range DPS is, the higher health that you can switch to those diamond bolts. Next, I have the Bandos Godsword as my special attack weapon. The Zarite crossbow is incredible for adding some 110s to the fight. That's also very expensive for just a spec weapon. If you have the ZCB, you don't really want to use it as your main weapon since the Dragon Hunter crossbow is better damage, but you can bring the crossbow switch just for the spec. The Elder Maul is a bit better for lowering defense than a Bandos Godsword. I do have the Void Melee Helm with me as well, and I make sure to put that on when I use the BGS or like an Elder Maul spec to give me a better chance that it lands. At the bottom of the Invy, I have that rune pouch, which has Law runes, Dust runes, and Chaos runes. The Dust runes are Earth and Air runes combined. That means I can use Crumble Undead, which is necessary during the fight, and House Teleports, which I use to travel back and forth from Vorkath. Back to the top of the Invy for potions, I have one ranging pot for range DPS. We have an extended super anti-fire. It is important to bring a super anti-fire since Vorkath's fire is very powerful. A regular one won't do the job. Then we have the anti-venom plus, which will cure your venom and give you venom immunity for 3 minutes, which is nice since Vorkath can inflict venom. You can get rid of this venom with weak potions as well, like regular anti-venoms or antidote plus pluses. And there's also now an extended anti-venom plus. You don't really need those since your trips won't be super long though, so in general, the anti-venom plus I find is the best option. Then I have 3 super restores, which restore 1 more prayer point per sip than a prayer potion. And for my food, I have carob wands. They heal 18 health apiece, and you get 1 less tick of attack delay when you eat these, which is very good for your DPS during the trip. Vorkath drops a lot of items every kill, so I find the inventory fills up a little bit too fast to need any higher healing food, and then the extra DPS from them being quick is very good. If you have any questions about the range, gear, and inventory setup, let me know in the comments section below. Now let's talk about how to travel to the boss. To get to Vorkath, you gotta take this boat from Relica. The quickest way to get there is the Fremennik Sea Boots 4, which are a reward from completing the Elite Fremennik Diaries. The Elite Boots give you unlimited teleports to Relica, very close to that boat. If you don't have the diary done, you can go to a real estate agent and move your player-owned home to Relica, and then just use a house teleport to travel there. You can right-click on a house tab or your house teleport spell and click outside to teleport outside of the portal, save just a little time. This is convenient because you can use the same teleport to leave Vorkath and get to your house, use your pool if you have one, and then teleport to a bank from there. If you don't want to use the house portal, the Enchanted Lyre can teleport you to Relica, or you could set up a Lunar Island or Waterbirth Island teleport. Those would work as well. I really suggest moving your house to Relica and just sending some house teleports. If you die at Vorkath, your stuff will be with Torfin, the guy who mans the boat that takes you there. It'll cost you 100k to get your stuff back. If you die again while Torfin has your stuff, it will delete all of that stuff. So make sure not to go back into the fight before you get your items back. 100k to get your stuff back can be pretty annoying early on, and it will make a big difference in your GP an hour since it's also slowing down your kills, having to like get your stuff back and reset up. But as you get some practice at the Vorkath fight, you really shouldn't be dying that often. Let's talk about Vorkaths Mechanics before getting into a full fight. Vorkath attacks with melee, magic, and range. If you're not standing right up next to him, then he won't ever use that melee attack. The magic attack is a blue ball, and the range attack is like a black and green ball with bones sticking out. You cannot predict these attacks, so you just gotta protect from whichever one's going to do the most damage over time. The range attack does have a 2 higher max hit than magic. When you're standing away from Vorkath and you're ranging him, he uses his range attack more often, so you want to protect range while you're ranging. When you're standing up close meleeing him, he's going to use more magic attacks, and it's easy to stack up your own range defense with melee gear, so you want to protect magic. He has a couple different styles of Dragonfire, which is very powerful. Even just using a super anti-fire, you're still going to take a little bit of damage from the fire, so you need a super anti-fire and a shield with anti-fire protection to void all of the damage from these attacks. The regular orange fire is just normal Dragonfire. The purple one is going to turn off your prayers, which is easy to fix by just clicking back on your quick prayers, and then the green one is going to inflict venom, which is why we're bringing that anti-venom plus. Sometimes Vorkath will toss up this big Dragonfire ball. The fire bomb cannot be protected from with any sort of anti-fire protection. You have to move away from it. If you get hit directly by it, it'll basically always one-hit KO. If you only move 1 tile away, it can still hit like 60 damage, so you gotta move at least 2 tiles to not get hit. A lot of players like to fight Vorkath with their run turned off, though it is a little more convenient dodging this attack while you are running. You have plenty of time to walk away from it, but if you react late and you're walking, you're gonna get hit a little. So those attacks are all of Vorkath's standard attacks. Every 6 standard attacks that he uses, he'll then use a special attack. He has 2 specs that he can use, the Acid Pool or the Zombified Spawn. He will alternate which special attack that he is using, so the first spec of the fight, you don't know which it's going to be, but from then on, you always know which spec is coming because he's just going every other one. For the Zombified Spawn special attack, Vorkath's going to use some white Dragonfire, which freezes you, and then Vorkath is immune to your attacks. He also spawns a little zombie fella who's going to walk up to you and explode for up to 60 damage. You one-hit this spawn if you hit it with a Crumble Undead spell. As long as your magic bonus isn't any lower than -63, you shouldn't ever splash on this zombie spawn. This can easily be achieved by switching to a Slayer Staff, which has a little bit of a magic bonus, and it can auto-cast Crumble Undead. Switching to your staff also stops your player from attacking Vorkath an extra time while he's immune. If you attack Vorkath one too many times, then you may not have enough time to use Crumble Undead before it actually pops. If you don't bring a Slayer Staff, you can avoid this situation by clicking on the ground or eating some food as soon as you see the white Dragonfire come out. The other special attack is the Acid Pool. He's going to spit a bunch of acid spots around the arena. If you step on any of these spots, they will hit you once per tick, and they'll heal Vorkath for however much damage they did to you, so don't step on them. He's also going to begin shooting fireballs at the player's feet once per tick, so you have to keep moving the entire phase or you are going to die. It's a lot easier to just keep walking while dodging if your run energy is off during this part of the fight. It's also worth noting you can use control click instead of just regular click, and your character will do the opposite of whatever your run energy says to do. So if you control click on the ground while your run is turned off, your character will run over there, and if you control click on the ground while your run energy is turned on, your character will actually just walk over there. I prefer to just turn on and off my run energy than use the control click personally, but control click is very helpful to have. Vorkath takes half damage during this acid attack, so it's not detrimental to just walk out the acid phase, but you can get some extra damage in to speed up your kills. Let's talk about Woox Walking. Woox Walking is just attacking Vorkath while you're moving so that you never get hit by the fireballs. To do this, you have to attack Vorkath from outside of your weapon's attack range. That way your character will move towards Vorkath while attacking, then if you click back as soon as you attack, you'll never stop moving. I find this is easiest to see visually when using a blowpipe since it's attacking every 2 ticks. You click on Vorkath, then back on the ground, clicking once per tick. The blowpipe is not really a good weapon at Vorkath anymore, so that's not as helpful as it once was, but it's a decent visual. On RuneLite, there's a plugin called Tile Indicators. In this plugin, you can highlight a few different tiles, like the one you're hovering over, the tile that you clicked on, or even the tile that your character is currently standing on. If you check this Highlight True Tile option and you begin to click around, you'll notice that your character does not always look like he's on the tile that's highlighted. This is known as animation delay. Your character's animation will sometimes fall behind what tile they are actually on, so this plugin makes it very helpful for navigating the acid pools or trying to Woox Walk. I personally just use the highlight destination tile to show where my character is going, and then when that highlight disappears, I know that's the tick that my character got there. This is also available on mobile. If you just type tile into your settings, you'll see options for your current tile and your destination tile. The Dragon Hunter Lance is a 4-tick weapon, so if you just run back and forth every tick, just like the blowpipe, you would dodge the fire, and you still are attacking every 4th tick. You can instead take 2 steps back back and 2 steps forward, so you can click every other tick if that's what you prefer. I'm a fan of clicking once per tick, even though it's more click intensive. I find it a little easier to time with the sound of the fireballs, but honestly, it's not much of a difference either way. Usually the toughest part is just getting started and finding a few open squares in front of Vorkath, but you don't need that much space overall. With a 5-tick melee weapon like the Osmumten's Fang, you'll need to take some uneven steps to keep attacking at a 5-tick pace. You could step to the side to achieve this, similar to what we'll do with the crossbow, but I suggest just sticking to walking back and forth. If you walk away from Vorkath 3 squares, that takes 3 ticks, and then if you run those 3 squares back, it only takes 2 ticks to return to Vorkath, making you attack at a 5-tick cycle. To do this, you will want to use your control click, so turn your run energy off, click 3 squares back, and then control click Vorkath so that you run up to him. You could also have your run on, do the control click to walk, and then just regular click to run up to him. Doesn't matter either way. So I'm walking away from Vorkath, and then I'm running back to him to attack. I'm clicking on ticks 1 and 4. Let's go ahead and count that out. We'll also put the fireball sound effect in here just to kind of help with rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Click 2, 3, click 5, and so on and so forth. As for Woox Walking with the crossbow, you do have to stand a lot further back than you do with melee, of course. You have to click from the very back row to be out of your attack range. This is not going to work with an Arma or a Zarite crossbow because they can reach Vorkath from too far away. So click on Vorkath, then click on the back row to step back immediately, and then from there I just click to the side to keep my character moving until I can attack again. While I'm doing this, I am usually counting to 5. Clicking on Vorkath is 1, clicking back is 2, and then clicking to the side is on the 3rd tick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. Again, I find it easier to keep up the rhythm with game sounds on, since the fireballs make a sound once every tick. When Vorkath first tosses up the acid, the pools are going to be spread out randomly for the most part. He will always toss an acid spot on the square that you're standing on when it happens, and he'll never put any acid along the back row in front of the exit unless it's that one acid spot that lands wherever you were standing. So as long as you're not standing in the back row when the attack starts, you're always going to have space on that back row to work with. If you have any questions about how to Woox Walk, let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Now let's go over a typical fight for melee. Some of this is going to be a little sped up to help with the length of the video. Alright, I turn on my quick prayers, which are Protect from Magic and Piety, and I'm going to send this Burning Claw spec to open up and switch back to my Fang. After that, there's really not a lot to do. We basically are just waiting for that firebomb that he's got to toss up. Oh, there it is. It's always right on cue. And then the purple fire, which will turn off my overheads. Other than that, we're just sitting around waiting for a special attack to happen. The first special attack was the zombified spawn, so I go ahead and put on my Slayer Staff and KO that spawn. I did turn off my prayer for a couple ticks to just save a few prayer points. We now know that 7 attacks from now, after 6 standard attacks, he is going to use the acid pool attack. And for those 6 standard attacks, again, I'm just making sure to step to the side for the firebomb and turn on my overhead prayers if they get turned off. As the acid spawns, I try to find an open spot. I did step on one pool there, but it really wasn't too bad to take that 10 damage, and then start doing a little bit of Woox Walking. You see right at the end of that attack, he does turn off my prayer, and I just click on my quick prayers to turn my overheads back on, and we're actually pretty close to being done with the fight already. So between special attacks, you're just waiting for the firebomb or your overheads to be turned off. You're going to be tanking any range hits and melee hits that he uses, but that's why you have Karam Wands. And anytime that your super combat, your super anti-fire, or your anti-venom plus run out, you can just resip those potions. And we did get this kill right as he was using that white dragonfire again, so he did spawn that thrall, but since he's dead, you'll notice that it's going to run up to me and it's not actually going to do anything. Now let's do a full range kill as well. Again, some of this is going to be sped up to help the length of this video. So I wake up Vorkath, go ahead and put on my Ruby Bolts because I'm going to want to use those early in the fight. Turn on my Quick Prayers, which are on Protect from Range and Eagle Eye. I did sip the ranging potion there and immediately took the Venom attack, so I sipped the Anti-Venom. I also hadn't sipped the Super Anti-Fire, so we sent that as well. I hit 100 while dodging that Fireball. And things have been pretty intense so far. That was actually kind of a lot for the beginning of this kill. We're already at the point that he's about to use a special attack. As he used that purple attack, I turned my prayer back on, and we have a bit of a Woox Walking moment. He gave me a lot of open space to Woox Walk with this time, but I've really never had a problem with him like taking up too much space and not giving you an open area to Woox Walk. Coming out of the Woox Walk, we immediately tank a mage hit, but that's just going to happen. We're protecting range, so we are tanking the mage damage. He tosses up one of those fire bombs, which I was slightly late on, but we really got out of the way with plenty of time to spare. While we're waiting for the next spec, I'm waiting to see if he uses the purple Dragonfire or the Firebomb. Those are really the only two things you have to pay attention to between special attacks. As he hits me with that freeze, I click on the ground real quick so I'll stop attacking him, and then I go ahead and use my Crumble Undead on the Thrall. I don't really like using the Slayer Staff if I don't have to, so I don't bring it with the range setup. I turn my prayer off during the zombified Thrall attack, and then only 2 attacks later he turns my prayer off for me as well, so we just keep turning it back on with the quick prayers. I did switch to Diamond Bolts there a little bit late, but I at least switched over to it before the fight was over. And we get the KO just as he was about to use another acid attack. We could have Woox walked through that, but we're done with the kill already. And would you look at that, Flood set himself a PB. Finally, let's talk about Vorkath's loot. Vorkath is known for having very consistent drops. At the moment, the average Vorkath drop is about 155k. There's some weak drops in there as well, like Grapes and the Wrath Talisman, but overall, he's a lot more consistent than other bosses. You're not just waiting for the one rare drop to pay the bills, which means each hour that you do Vorkath is always very profitable. Also, the superior Dragon Bones that he always drops 2 of are up to 20k a piece right now, which is much higher than they have been in a long time. The amount of kills per hour will vary on your stats, your gear, and just how competent you are at the fight. Earlier in the grind, you might find yourself dying more often and getting slower kills, so you could sit at like 10 to 15 kills per hour, but with max gear at max pace, you're more like 30 kills per hour with either range or melee. At an average of 155k per kill, that's anywhere from 1.5 to 4.6 mil an hour in loot. When using melee, more of that loot is going to be profit since you're not using any bolts, but overall you can expect anywhere from 3.5 to 4 mil GP an hour at maximum pace. There's a few rare uniques at Vorkath as well. One of the main ones is the Vorkath's Head, which can be used to upgrade your Ava's Accumulator into an Ava's Assembler. This drop is a 1 in 50 chance, but you are guaranteed to get one on your 50th KC, so you won't ever go dry for your backpack upgrade. The Dragon Bone Necklace is a 1 in 1,000 drop. Burying bones while you wear this necklace will restore some of your prayer points. It is an interesting but fairly niche item, so it's not very expensive. The Draconic Visage and the Skeletal Visage are both 1 in 5,000 drops. These can be used to make a Dragonfire Shield or a Dragonfire Ward, which are the upgraded versions of the Anti-Dragon Shield. He also has the Jar of Decay drop at a 1 in 3,000 rate, and a little Vorkey pet that's also at a 1 in 3,000 drop rate. I believe that's everything I wanted to talk about when it comes to fighting Vorkath, everyone. If you still have any questions about the boss, be sure to let me know in the comments section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you enjoyed the video, or you just got some useful information out of it, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching this Vorkath guide, everyone, and best of luck on your Vorkath grinds.